Hello and welcome to Founders Amplified, where we spotlight underrepresented founders who are driving innovation and impact across various industries and sectors across the globe. I'm your host, Narayan Kulkarni, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Today's guest is Tahreem Shah. Tahreem Shah would consider herself an architect turned entrepreneur and mentor. Her journey started in design, but over time she moved into building and scaling tech-driven solutions, from healthcare accessibility to financial inclusion. Today, she co-leads Scalar, a startup simplifying cloud decisions for businesses, while also mentoring women and entrepreneurs through many global programs. At its heart, her work has always been about using design and technology to create meaningful impact and positive change. So, now that you know a little bit more about Tahreem, let's dive into the conversation. Welcome to Founders Amplify, Tahreem. It is great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Great. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Narayan.
You're welcome. And again, thanks so much for being here and joining us. And just to kick things off, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your story. So, can you tell me about what led you to become a founder and if there were any particular experiences or moments that really sparked that decision?
I mean, that's a very common question that I have been getting in different platforms, and I would love to share it. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we are here and you're also doing what you're doing, because definitely these stories need to be amplified and put across out there. So my story is a bit different, a very non-traditional way of how I ended up in the startup ecosystem, given I'm an architect by trade and a social entrepreneur by passion. And I think my family business kind of inspired me to be in this entire kind of a business area, be it traditional or non-traditional, especially my dad. And yeah, I think that's where it all began when I was in grade seven, and my dad took me to this real estate work that he was doing besides his CA job. He was the head of finance and account for an export-import company. And then he told me that he loves doing this because he enjoys construction business despite having his 9 to 5. And then I was like, great, maybe someday I want to have my own thing. But I never knew that thing would be fast forwarding few more years. I got done with my university. By the end of it, I kind of transitioned to mold my academia into the architecture. Um, I wouldn't say architecture world, but rather vast scenario of what architecture could be, where I unfolded my vision of becoming an entrepreneur. How so? Not just by having a traditional architectural firm, but rather kind of nitpicking on the things that architects transition to when they become businessmen globally. So my inspiration kind of sparked in a realistic way when I did my internship in Norway. That's where I could understand the pulse of architecture being beyond building boundaries and figure out that, okay, architecture has this part which I definitely didn't explore in my 5 years of undergrad education, and that is definitely the human-centric design approach of it. And that's when I decided to merge design thinking with technology and business, and boom, I was like, damn, there's a world called startup. I don't have to be a traditional business person and be called an entrepreneur, and I can actually solve problems while doing my day-to-day work. And I think that's when my willingness started, but a business really didn't shape up. And this is, I think, 7 to 8 years ago. So fast forward a few more years when I decided that, okay, how do I kind of shape my entire business or come up with an idea that I want to roll out? I decided to work in startups. I worked in the largest service tech in Bangladesh. My first initial job taught me, say, about cost optimization, revenue assurance, numbers crunching or whatsoever. And then I shaped my first business, which was initially a social business called Bharsha, meaning trust in English, which is one of the top 29 social businesses globally, for which I'm a Global Unison Youth Fellow. And that was something as simple as Bumble for females to get matched with jobs, which they are skillfully, rightfully should be doing rather than just settling for one. And I started from the blue um, collar jobs or the informal settlements back home in Bangladesh, right? And it's a very interesting way of how I came up with this idea because this was part of my urban studies subject back in school, like university. And my research kind of led me to this idea of how to solve it in the most innovative way possible, which eventually shaped it up to a startup and a social business and whatnot. And I think, yeah, that's where it all began. And of course, we can unfold the rest of the story as we speak.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing. It's really cool to hear how ever since it sounds like in childhood, learning about like your parents' background to then architecture and then human-centered design, and then naturally it sounds like there's been an arc there. Something that really stood out to me, a few things. So number one, the detail orientation as well as like the construction and then that molding into human-centered design. I found that really interesting and how like that was it sounds like it was a bridge to that. So with so many amazing things. But one thing I'd like to learn a little bit more about. One thing that struck me as you shared was aspects of your professional perspective and how that shaped your journey. But can you talk to us more about how your identity and your like any other salient experiences like since in that time or since then have shaped your perspective and give you a unique edge in your current founding journey?
Of course, most definitely. I feel like being an entrepreneur has a lot to do with your personality. And back then, I remember speaking to some of my mentors while being a student that, hey, I want to do this. I want to start something. I want to do something of my own. I don't know where to start. And it was not as easy as I'm explaining. You know, there has been like roller coaster ride. And that is when I think one of my mentors, or probably I kind of discovered while speaking to them, that my personality has a lot to do with trying to solve an issue and change it into being a founder, which is why even though we had a lot of co-founders in the journey, some of them didn't continue the journey, some of us did, and some of us wanted to embrace the challenges that came along. Now, do mind it that work itself can be challenging, and trying to work on a business idea, of course, can be challenging. But the real challenge came when, say, it was a young female professional or young student who was full of ambition and tried to do something out there, which was, I think, very much male dominated industry. I mean, my first job, even the first few days of being in the startup ecosystem, founders not being very female friendly in the spaces. I remember going through a lot of challenges and having to overcome those and at the same time establish my idea to be pitched at different places. Now, let me be very clear and straightforward with something which I think is very close to my heart, that my entire journey has been molded by my dad. And of course, he's not here now, but I mean, if I am here today, it's only because he kind of taught me the very essence of parallel profession and the business mindset that you should be having, like the first mindset of being uh, perse- perseverant. Like, you know, you have to kind of understand that, okay, you will be failing a lot of times, you will be hearing a lot of things, but you've got to get up and, you know, dig deeper and move on and get things happen. So it was definitely that mental support which brought me here. And I think that kind of gelled very well with the profession that I shaped up for myself, right? Which is the entrepreneurial journey or being an entrepreneur. Now, I think being very clear with a vision came years later. Initially, when I started, of course, I did not have a very clear vision of where I was going, where I could overlap my personal and professional life. But it definitely eventually turned out to be exploring my ikigai of what I'm good at, what the world needs, and what I should be doing. And that's when I was like, okay, this is a beautiful combination, beautiful overlapping. And I remember even discussing this with my dad, and he pretty much welcomed it, saying that, yeah, of course, you can do your job and at the same time try to build something. And when it's the right time, you can go full force and get things done. But of course, there's nothing called a right time. So I could never figure out which exact moment is the right time, but I did have small right time here and there to do it. So yeah, I think my identity as a female, as an elder daughter, as a elder sister, coming from South Asia, brown family, and I think pretty much not even having a degree outside Bangladesh, right? Um, I did build a global network, and I am currently working on a global SaaS product. And of course, I had the opportunity to not just work in Bangladesh, but my first workplace being in Norway, second being in Singapore. Now I'm here based in Dubai. So yeah, definitely.
Wow. Again, thanks so much for sharing your journey. And I want to pause and say, I really appreciate that you shared about your dad and his influence that you had on you. And I'm really sorry to hear that he's not longer with us. And send you our condolences. But that also kind of resonates with me because I'm also South Asian. My grandfather, kind of similar to what you, sounds like your dad was very formative in developing some of the traits that I most admire. So, for example, governance and responsibility, like being like community serving, but also having great affection and relationships, and through relationships modeling what like possibility could be. And that he's definitely one of the influences that for me, why I chosen to go into business, health administration, and now like mentoring entrepreneurs. So, and also it's really amazing to hear that you had a degree in Bangladesh, but then you've then taken that journey globally and really made a name for yourself. I think of my mother, for example. So yeah, she became a doctor in India, and then she then moved to the U.S. and to Saudi Arabia, and like she then made her own name as well. So I'm hearing some of like
Great.
echoes in my own story, and I really again I'm grateful to hear that like how that journey has taken you to now being in Dubai working on a global SaaS product. And I would love to know more about this global SaaS product. So could you tell us more about what it is, what you're doing, and how like what you're doing might make people turn heads and say, "Oh, I haven't thought about that," or "Oh, what's this creative thing you're doing?" Can you tell us more about that?
Great. I think to come to that point, I kind of have to go fast for like sorry backward 6 months or maybe a year to just kind of reflect on what I have been building and at the same time what I'm working on, both being equally important. So I think it started sometime back in the mid of last year when I got selected for Antler's Entrepreneur in Residency program in Singapore, very similar to say Techstars and Ycom, right? So Antler has this best part of where you can meet like-minded people and become co-founders to them and kind of like gel with an idea while you're working on it for like say around 3 months, and then you can continue building it. So I met my co-founder over there, him being an ex-Google data engineering guy, having more than a decade of experience, and self-taught software engineer who even worked in hedge funds in Boston, right? This hardcore American guy who would have known. I would have met him and he would have met me. We would have become co-founders, and I think we worked on three ideas, and finally we came up with Scalar. So it's like Scalar scaling with AI, and it's a business AI co-pilot. The very essence of it is actually to interact with your data in, say, Excel, or you could even say in your emails. So now you might feel like, okay, how is that even possible? Or isn't that already done by, say, Gemini or Manus.ai or something like that? But being very honest, no. I mean, all of us have been talking about surface level AI, but if you actually get deeper into cloud computing and you get very deeper into contextual data structuring, which is say not just the normal chat GPT. Imagine having a platform where you can push your company's data at a series A above level, where the CXOs are communicating with each other based on those data and taking decisions for what to do next. And not just that, you actually have dynamic interfaces for the software engineers or the tech team. You have a dynamic interface for, say, the business team and the marketing team. Say a better version of if your activity or workflows could be contextual for you to take or make you the best version of yourself as the CXO of that company and have the best growth possible for that um, business, the best potential growth, because it's all about fundraising at the end of the day for that specific startup or so. So we did start with a small pool of ICP, not only just in Singapore, in a few other places as well. And now we are at a place where we, I think, have been doing our beta testing from this week, because John just completed. So his name is John, my co-founder. I forgot to tell his name, but he just completed the first beta version of the app, and he's like, "Hey, we don't need to fundraise, we don't need to do this, but really need to get the product out there to see how well it's working or not." And a bit fun fact on the product, it's actually apparently a AI version of me, because all the previous roles that I have had as a head of growth and a chief revenue officer and the COO, to kind of crack the model of how to have uh, business growth so that you can like touch the numbers that you're promising your investors in the most strategic way possible. So that kind of shaped up into becoming an app, and we kind of have been exploring and playing around with it since Jan. But of course, this delayed, like I said, because my dad passed away in December. So after that, between Jan to March, I really haven't been able to work on anything, being very honest. And which is why it's now that we are just able to do the pilot testing and play around with it. We really don't have a very specific kind of a market to target, but rather to see how the app would be working out or playing a role. Now, we did get some really interesting, what did I say? Collaboration offers. We have had a PhD holder from U of T who has this projects, research projects that he has under Microsoft and other companies. I don't want to name those, but just like Microsoft, because it's fine to share the name, where he would want to collaborate and work on the data due diligence, or how we have been maintaining that, or how the data structuring would be done. So a lot of work is happening and behind the table, and we are very much enjoying it. There is nothing to rush with anything. Now, of course, that's the global SaaS tech product that I have been building with my co-founder. You guys should really check it out. Maybe I will be sharing the app link once we're done for some initial beta testing. And yeah, other than that, of course, I really have to kind of put it out there that despite building what I'm passionate about, I am also the regional business advisor for Udo, which is one of the largest ERP in the world. It's a Belgian company, 20 years in the business, having more than 10 million plus users all across the world in more than 17 countries. So this tech product, Udo, has decided to enter the Bangladesh market last year, and I am one of the initial members who has been rolling it out and doing the GTM and how there could be a product market fit. So it's all about tech sales and tech product building, and I basically love my life right now where it is. So yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing. So two big things that stuck out to me as you were sharing. First of all, and I don't know if many people talk about this much, but it's totally fine for an entrepreneur as they're a founder to have other roles, especially if they're complementary, of course, considering conflict of interest and things like that. But it sounds like in your case, it is definitely something that fuels you with passion, but also is, of course, professionally relevant and valuable. The second thing, which I thought was interesting and I'd like to learn a little bit more about, was so the focus on CXOs, chief experience officers, and dynamic interfaces. I thought was very cool, because I too have like in health administration worked with like data. I've like understood patient experience data specifically, and so I understand in a healthcare setting why this is important. But can you tell us more about why you decided to focus on CXOs specifically?
Well, I think we have had a very intensive study on why and how this problem exists. So the initial outcome of the study came from this thorough survey that we did, where cost was a very important aspect of maintaining data in this kind of companies. Like they were like, okay, what if we could kind of we kind of build something very similar to economize. Like, okay, if the company has a lot of data and they're growing and they're using this data, maybe it's getting too expensive and they kind of want to cost optimize it and use it and whatnot. But then we saw that in those answers, there was a part where they felt like they didn't have visibility of the right kind of data at the right time to take the right kind of decisions. And a lot of people who filled up that survey and talking about cost, which might have been the third or fourth problem, which we thought was number one problem, kind of um, started talking about cost after they said that, okay, I don't have the visibility of the data to take the right kind of decision by talking with the right kind of stakeholders in the business. And who are the stakeholders? Say the head of marketing department, the head of growth, or any other CXOs, could be a CFO, CMO, CEO, or CEO, or someone like that, right? And we were like, okay, what we thought is a problem is not actually a problem in the first place. The first place or second place problem lies elsewhere, which is the visibility of the data and crunching it and not having enough time to see it at a glance and have an interaction with the data along with the right kind of person and be a decision maker and make the best decision for the business, be it for raising funds or expanding their revenue or expanding markets or cost optimization, which was of course one of the things that we thought was a problem. So the main reason to actually choose or roll it out as a pilot launch for CXOs was because it was the CXOs who expressed these concerns. One. Second, it's them who runs the company, right? If you think of a startup which is data and infrastructure heavy and above Series A, it's the CXOs who are doing this job. It's not the others. And if they're the one who gives access to data to their teams, then no worries. By the way, the CXOs actually include the CTO as well. So the tech team is there. So you would be seeing that a lot of tech teams, like the developers, do have a lot of apps that help them, like Kubernetes and others. Like they do get that help of, kind of knowing what sort of development they should be doing, hours, the agile work method, and kind of bringing it to their project management tool. But if you think of a similar structure for the other teams, they don't really have it, which could connect them to the tech team. Now, this brings me to the fun part, which was the overarching line that we came to at the end of the day. I mean, over there was the fact that the CTO keeps on telling that, okay, to do something which could be the tech stack of a business would require XYZ amount or XYZ days. But the other CXOs, be it the CEO or CEO, would be like, no, I don't think so. Maybe you can do it at half the cost, one third the cost, or one eighth the cost. So there was this disconnect between the tech and the business decision. And if you would want to create a bridge between them, probably this could be a good start, helping them see the data, right kind of data, and interact between, make the right kind of decisions. So it's a long story, long journey, long research, which eventually made us come to the point of Scalar, which you're seeing as a business AI co-pilot.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing. Now it sounds like you've done lots of research. You'll be rolling out the app in the short term, but I'd like to
If I could
maybe
share
zoom
my
out.
pitch deck sometime so that we
Okay.
could see it. It can be there, no worries.
Yeah, so I'd like to maybe zoom out and also zoom forward. So let's say like we're around like 5, 10 years into the future. Can you tell me like the impacts you're seeing that show us that your solution is working?
I mean, being very honest, I think that this kind of solution could really help startups have a sustainable business model. If you would see the number of startups failing globally, it's actually 99%, being very honest. And there are few issues that has been happening with startups not being able to utilize their funds, understand their growth metrics, and also give a certain kind of commitment to the investors with the term sheets that they're agreeing with. So the investors are also doing their research of what sort of industry they should be investing in, type of founders and whatnot, right? But at the end of the day, no matter how much they're betting their money on those founders, it's on the founder to kind of take it forward. And if they don't have the right kind of visibility to build the right kind of tech stack, and they kind of start without understanding what is required, and once they're at a certain phase, they don't know how to now grow or expand or scale using, say, AI, that's when there might be a bottleneck. It becomes stagnant. So we don't want that to happen. We want companies to have the right kind of information to have the right kind of sustainable business model, that they don't have to be entirely dependent on, say, fundraising and be in that game of fundraising. And even if they are, they should be knowing how much gets invested and has the right kind of ROI after the company hits a certain um, stage where they do become data and infrastructure heavy. So that's why we were very specific about even targeting, say, Series A or above companies, right? Because we could test it with them, and if something works out, then we could test it with companies who are, say, on pre-seed level and kind of collaborate with um, solution which is helping pre-seed companies create the right kind of MVP or not burn a lot for a technology solution, or just create an app without even knowing what sort of problem they're trying to solve. So these are all interconnected. So you're actually empowering a founder to know what sort of business he's getting himself into, and can whether they can lead it or not, and whether the right kind of team members, co-founders, or leaders are there in the team. And I feel like you don't have to spend a lot of time where you are like hiring a business analyst and trying to see all these dashboards and reports and being in a messy situation. You should be easily able to interact with your company's data in a contextual manner and not be very much or wholly dependent with ChatGPT and be bombarded with random answers as well. So we kind of wanna minimize that, and yeah, it will probably be taking us around 3 to 5 years to do that. That was the vision that we started with, a central intelligence platform.
I see. So I'm hearing at a high level that yes, that business intelligence would reduce startup failures drastically, which would then lead to, of course, like avoiding job losses, i.e., preserving jobs, and also by extension, having multidimensional impact on the like beneficiaries of those startups still being out there. So
Right.
that's what I'm hearing, and I appreciate that perspective.
Right.
So the next question I have, I'm sure you've had a lot of learnings in this journey, but can you tell us maybe one or two that you know now as a founder that you wish you had known prior to beginning your journey as a founder?
Oh man, there are so many. Well, so the startup that I was talking about is actually my third venture. I have been part of two other ventures previously. Like I spoke about Porsche, right? Which was a female fintech. And in the middle, I did build a health tech, which was Uber for diagnostics, called Amar Lab. I had two other co-founders too, right? We were in seed stage and expanding beyond Bangladesh to the other markets of Southeast Asia that had similar demography. Now, after building or while building three ventures and also working in tech sales and also being in jobs while building something, always being between work and whatnot, one thing I can say is that, you know, we are not running out of time. Let's not put the pressure of thinking that we are running out of time. I feel like sometimes that pressure of, that imposter syndrome pressure of, others doing it, others already reaching Forbes 30 under 30, they probably have raised millions, thousands, hundred, I don't know. That kind of gets to you in the startup ecosystem. At the very initial phase where people would be telling you a lot of things, that why don't you do this, why don't you do that, it's very important to keep your I would say keep your head cool, be in the right kind of composure, that all right, 10 people can say 10 other things, 10 people might be doing 10 other things, but I have to know that this is my journey and it needs to be in a certain way that is
Mm.
complementary for me. Now, you might have a skill set that's missing to build the right kind of business. The time might not be right. You might need money, but maybe you don't even know why you need the money. That's why probably the money is also not coming in. And it's okay. The delays are all right. So that is something I would really feel like I had to learn, right? But I learned it pretty later. Like I didn't like
Mm.
nobody taught it to me in the initial days. So I wish I knew it in the initial days, and I wish it was easier, because it could have been made easier. And I think one of the very core purpose of why I think as an entrepreneur I have a tendency of giving back is because I don't want people to be repeating the same kind of mistake that I did. One, second is the fact that, of course, if I share this with them, they would probably be handling the situation much better than how I did, and I would love to see that. And I
Okay.
think other than
Thanks so
this,
much for
yeah, other than
sharing.
this, there is actually nothing more, because that itself was a very big thing for me to do
Wow.
it in a different way. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So, how can people find you and how can people support your work?
So I am very much active on LinkedIn. So you can find me over there, Shah Tahreem. I'm there, or Tahreem Shah, whichever is preferable for you. You can actually search my name and put podcast after that. I do have two, three other podcasts. So there's Momentpreneur Asia, where I have a season. I think from the last, sorry, I have an episode from the last season, episode 8, where you will be knowing my entire journey in details. And yeah, I'm pretty much out there. You can find me, and I think the best way is actually LinkedIn, and I think my email is there as well. So I'm pretty much active over emails too.
Okay, so you can see Tahreem's information in the show notes. And now it's time for our signature question. Can you please fill in the blank? I amplify.
In giving back. And that's definitely me. I amplify in giving back to the community as a social entrepreneur or as a founder.
Wow. Again, very, very short but profound and deep. And I want to conclude by saying thanks so much for joining us, Tahreem, and sharing all of your awesome insights. It was really cool to connect, talk to you, and hear about the innovative things you're doing with Scalar and all that impacts that promises. And I just also want to pause and say thank you for being, like, in your own way, a fantastic leader to underrepresented founders. And so as I reflect on this conversation, a few things really stand out. So first of all, you just talked about it, like your desire to give back, be a person of service given the challenges you faced, being a multiple time founder, for example. That's something that I especially thought that was meaningful. I appreciate a lot. The other thing which I really appreciate, which you talked about, was how you have a lot of different perspectives and richness of perspective which you bring into Scalar, and that allows you to really, like, bring the passion, the expertise that, like, allows it to differentiate itself in a new way. And finally, you've talked about your father and, like, how family and that has had a big impact on you. And again, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. I send my condolences, but I also I am touched in that way because I also similarly have family, and that gratitude in a close family member that has empowered you. I see and I, like, applaud and admire that in you and how you are taking that forward in your entrepreneurial journey. So thank you so much, Tahreem.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting all of our stories out there. Very appreciated.
You're most welcome. I look forward to being in touch, but and this has been an amazing conversation. So bye for now. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Founders Amplified. I hope you're feeling as inspired as I am. If you'd like to learn more about our guests and support them, check out the show notes for their details. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating, share it with someone you know, and follow us for more inspiring episodes like this one. If you're a founder who is driving innovation and impact in any industry or sector anywhere in the world and would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes for more information. And finally, remember that you, yes, you, have the power to amplify the voices around you. Whether you're a colleague, family member, friend, funder, mentor, or just another fellow human, your support matters. So I invite you to celebrate and uplift the underrepresented innovators in your life who are driving innovation and impact. Let's create a better future for everyone, together. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep amplifying.